play, and he's a good back. So he needs to stay healthy, obviously, which would help those situations. He's missing some time because he got a concussion on special teams, I believe. Yeah, I think it's important that we monitor Dalvin's workload and as we go forward. But like I said before, at the end of the ball game, we need our best players in the game. And Dalvin's not only one of our best players, but one of the best players in the NFL.
Yes, he is. That is true. A couple of sound bites there. Mike Zimmer talking about Dalvin Cook. And then the sound bite at the start there was him saying, listen, Gary Kubiak just needs a couple minutes to figure out what he's going to do with his life. And then we'll proceed from there. This is Purple Daily. Phil Mackey, Judd Zulgad, Declan Goff producing. And if you are familiar with our longtime radio show and now podcast, Mackey and Judd, every single week for a number of years, we have done a segment that we call Write That Down and Write That Down Predictions. We are the only sports show in America that actually keeps track of our predictions every year and keeps track of our batting averages and home runs, quote unquote, as we
write it down. You like writing things down. Write this down.
So it's been one of our most fun segments, and we welcome listeners into the segment every single week. And we're gonna continue on with classic Write That Down every single Wednesday on Mackey and Judd. But the big breaking news for 2021 is the Write That Down committee has met. They have talked about expansion, much like Adam Silver and the NBA has talked about Vegas and Seattle. Should we add more teams? We've said we should take Write That Down to the next level. What other territories can we bring the accountability session that comes with Write That Down? And we say, you know what?
Write this down. Write it down. You like writing things down.
It's time to bring Write That Down to Vikings form in Purple Daily. And so starting this week, and we're going to bring in a guest listener predictor here in just a second, by the way, who hit one of the biggest home runs in the history of the segment last year. We're going to fire this up every single week on Wednesdays here on Purple Daily, Apple, Spotify, scorenorth.com, and also youtube.com/Purple Daily Podcast. And we're going to invite listeners in every week. So if you want to make, and we'll go through it this week, there's no accountability session because we haven't made predictions. But if you want to be part of this segment any given week, send me, Phil Mackey, at Phil Mackey, or Declan, at Dex's Tweets, DEXS Tweets. Send us a DM on Twitter, and we will get you scheduled. But Dex, let's fire this thing up. Let's rock and roll.
Most sports talking heads make predictions, then hope you forget about how wrong they were. But not Mackey and Judd with Rami. This is the big leagues where we own our terrible predictions.
Write this down.
And keep track of each other's batting averages.
Write it down. You like writing things down.
It's Write That Down with Mackey, Judd, and Rami.
Write it down. You like writing things down. Write this down.
And unfortunately for Rami, he's our friend, old co-host of the show. This will be the last time that his intro plays. We said we're going to keep him on the marquee until this week. We'll have a new intro for next week. But
he was still in contention.
He was in contention.
I also I needed a T-shirt from last year because I survived Rami Makloff's Super Bowl party, and he saw me eat more food than he didn't think anyone my size could eat. So I did earn a major respect from Rami Makloff for surviving that party.
We love Rami. Even though he's a Bears fan. We'll get him on here at some point again. He was on Purple Daily at one point last year.
Teams going to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Thanks to the Vikings.
Woof. So here's how Write That Down works. 3 Vikings or football-related predictions from everybody each week. They must be quantifiable. And people, if you're new to this here on Purple Daily, then you'll understand that when we say they must be quantifiable, we are very strict about that.
Yep.
Like if you say the Minnesota Vikings will draft a quarterback this spring, and the draft, because of COVID, gets bumped to the summer, you're wrong. Like, specifics matter in this segment. But 3 Vikings or football-related predictions from everybody each week. And when I say football-related, it can be very loosely football-related, too. Like, if you want to predict that Declan's going to drink 9 Corona hard seltzers on a football Sunday and crush all the cans on his head, that's a football prediction.
Yes.
Or Ventline might be even more amazing. We keep track of batting averages and home runs on this segment. And like I said, listeners can DM me or Declan on Twitter if you want to participate. Let's bring in here our first guest listener predictor. His name is Kip, Vikes fan 1930 on Twitter. And Kip, we got to congratulate you because I think you are probably the holder of the longest home run ever hit in Write That Down history. And at the beginning of the year, on the classic Mackey and Judd edition of this, you said the Washington football team will win the NFC East with exactly a 7-9 record, and the Philadelphia Eagles would aid them in getting to the postseason. All of those things happened. It's one of the great home runs ever hit.
Bravo.
Write that down.
That's a true Kip tape measure shot. Mantle, Marathon 61, McGuire, juiced up, and Kip.
Nice job, man.
Yeah, so I actually was sweating it out when they were playing Carolina, and kind of a backstory is I have my fantasy football team, and I give out a shout out to Eric, Tom, and John, and John is a Philly fan, so him and I have been at it since 2017. We don't get along. He's a Carson Wentz believer. He's a Philly fan through and through, and he held 38-7 to my feet over the fire for the year. So when I was calling for the upset in Carolina, that Carolina was going to upset the Redskins, and I got obliterated in the chat because I also had to remind them that this home run prediction was hinging on that game. And I'm like, oh no, because I didn't think it would happen. And then it started to happen, and I'm going, this could happen. But as a Vikings fan, I know not to get my hopes up until the clock hit 0. So when it hit 0, and then when they were playing Philly, I didn't even think the Philly component was going to play a part until the fourth quarter when they bench Hurts, and I'm going, I got the home run, and then the Philly happened, and I'm going, I could not have planned it out. That is the Minneapolis Miracle throw that happened there. I mean, I was sitting there going, yeah. So I do have to give props to Eric and Tom, who actually came up with the prediction. So I solely cannot claim credit. I just kind of stepped up to the plate, but them two actually came up with it, and they kind of threw it out. They kind of threw out like a funny joke, like, okay, because I told them it had to be a home run, and they said Washington winning the division is going to be a home run within itself. So I went back to the drawing board, so I might have. I have one prediction that was kind of quantifiable for the playoffs, so I'll take that prediction in this week along with a couple others. So,
Awesome. So, a legendary moonshot by Kip, and your home run also put the listeners collectively in the lead, and you became the home run champions of us. So, congratulations. So, this is the first ever episode of Purple Write That Down, in which, like we said at the top, every prediction has to be either a Vikings or loosely football related, or it can be, it can be college football related, but football related predictions. We'll do it this way. 3 predictions from everybody. We'll take 3 laps around the room. We'll start with Kip. We'll go Judd, Declan, and back to me, Phil Mackey, and we'll do it 3 times. So lead us off, Kip.
Write it down. You like writing things down.
What's your first prediction?
Okay, this is from the group, and this is actually from John, who's a huge Ohio State fan. So he is predicting that the Ohio State will upset Clemson in the national championship game by a score of 56-28. That Justin Fields would come, Alabama. Sorry, he was emotional in that game. That Alabama or Ohio State will beat Alabama in the championship game by 3 scores. I'm just going to keep it 3 scores by 3 scores.
Wow.
Okay. So there's some leeway there. Like 3 scores could be. If it's a 16-point win, that's only 2 scores, right? So it's got to be 17, 18, all the way up to whatever the math.
That would be 17.
Well, let's do 17 then. We'll do it 17. That way we ain't gonna have no Supreme.
I think we should go 3 scores so that you have because if you go 17, that would be a home run. If we go 3 scores, it probably still is.
Okay.
Give us some leeway.
Would pop off if they lose by that much. It'll just come right off.
Write this down.
All right, Judd Zolgad, your first prediction.
Okay, my first prediction for Vikings / football, write that down on Purple Daily. Clint Kubiak will be the Vikings' next offensive coordinator.
Yeah,
Clint Kubiak. Gary is going to. I think Gary might agree to come back in the advisor role again. And the more I think about it, because Zim does not want change, it'll be Clint Kubiak. So to write that down, just to be clear, is Clint Kubiak is the next Vikings offensive coordinator.
Tracking that.
Write this down. Write it down. You like writing things down.
Declan Goff.
All right, on the contrary, the Vikings' next offensive coordinator will be a former full-time NFL head coach. The Vikings' next offensive coordinator.
So Hugh Jackson, Anthony Lynn, Jay Gruden.
Yep, will be a former NFL head coach.
Bill Parcells.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackson. Can you imagine if Hugh Jackson got the job here?
I actually could see that. Mike Zimmer
loves
loves former crusty old
Yeah, he
coaches
does.
to come
Yeah,
in.
I think his reputation is sullied enough that there would be outrage if Zimmer tried to hire him again.
All right, here's my first prediction.
Write it down. You like writing things down.
I'm going to beat you guys to this one. It's pretty obvious. We're going to start with, we're going to square up
The
for a bun
Vikings will
here.
win the next 4 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Kyle Rudolph will be cut. Kyle Rudolph will be cut. I'll just say he'll be cut before training camp. Kyle,
Okay.
I'm going to give myself a huge runway here. Kyle Rudolph will be cut before training camp from the Vikings roster.
Okay.
There will not be a restructure or a trade. They're just going to say goodbye to Kyle Rudolph. They're
Write this down.
very emotional.
Write it down. You like writing things down.
All right, Kip, your second prediction.
Oh man, I was going to go with the offensive coordinator route, but that was too like Declan kind of stole it, but I was like, I don't want to parlay and over.
So you can amend it if you want, Kip. Like you can make your own.
That's another rule. You can make a duplicate prediction. You just have to add something to it.
I'm gonna say that the Vikings will hire someone outside of the organization for the no. I'm gonna double down. I'm gonna say the Vikings take Anthony Lynn as the offensive coordinator. I'm gonna stick with that. There's a lot of smoke coming from that camp, even though he likes to air it out a lot. I think that Rick's gonna overrule Mike in this regard because I think both their lines are on the job on the line. Yes.
Yeah, and Anthony Lynn, actually, the Chargers were top 10 in rushing attempts last year, even at like 3.5 yards a carry.
Chad Graff threw it out too yesterday that he could be a potential candidate. So
Write this down.
Judd Zolgad.
No, it'll be Kubiak and Son. Speaking of the Broncos, I'm going to already, because this seems very fitting for me, start to fire people. The Broncos will fire Vic Fangio before the end of the 2021 season.
Vic Fangio.
So they're going to get, because they're going to have a new GM now. That guy is going to come in. Fangio is going to lose like 4 games fairly quickly next season. So the Broncos will fire Vic Fangio, who I absolutely love.
One of the great football names
Oh,
of all time.
And he looks like a Vic.
He looks
That's
exactly
the best part.
like a Vic
And he
Fangio.
looks like a guy who should coach defense, which he does. Vic Fangio fired before the end of the 2021
If
season.
you walked into a room and someone said, gun to the head, you've never seen this man before, you have one guess, what's his name? You'd be like, Vic Fangio.
Yeah.
Like,
And does he like offense or defense? Oh, no, he doesn't like defense. His name's Vic Fangio.
the rest of my guy,
All
Drew
right,
Lock.
Declan, your second
No,
prediction.
Declan, I have
No one
Justin.
does.
No.
All right, Riley Reif will resign with the Vikings. Riley Reif
Stealing
will
my prediction.
resign with the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay. All right. Well, so I'm going to give mine, and then we might have to haggle over something.
Okay, cool.
He's already under contract with the Vikings, right?
Okay. Yep.
So my prediction is Riley Reif will agree to a restructured 2-year contract with the Vikings before the end of March. So he's under contract for, the cap hit is
But
like
he's going to
13
get
and a half.
and he's going to get a big chunk of change in a
Yep.
bonus.
So
Okay.
I'm saying he will agree to a restructured 2-year contract.
and what did Declan
So
say?
I have to amend mine because I think he's going to re-sign. So like I can't because he's already
But he's
under
already
contract.
signed.
So I have to amend mine.
Mm-hmm.
Probably was what you're trying to say.
I'm jumping in line. You're like the Vikings in the
Yep.
2003
What is going
draft
on
right
here?
now. You missed your pick.
All right, fine. I'll just say this. Riley Reif will be cut by the Vikings.
Whoa, you're
I'll
going
just say
Wait,
it.
wait,
Whoa!
He'll be cut.
Well, you just said he's going to be.
No. I'm
What?
going to take the opposite. If he's going to do the restructure, I'm just going
He's
to say
pulling a sports dad.
just write that
like-
down. I'm just going to
This
take
is like write that down just started. We'll write that down, veterans. Damn it!
No, it's fine.
Screwed up. I
It'll be
wouldn't be
fine. No, it'll be
surprised.
fine. It's fine.
So he's just gone. You're
Yeah.
just going to
He's
cut
gonna
him.
be cut.
Write that down
Wow.
as off the rails.
No.
Off the damn rails.
If it happens, then I look like
Write it down. You like writing things down.
You write that down totally.
All right,
fine.
Kip, your final prediction here.
I'd like to apologize, Kip.
yeah.
No, it's fine. As an homage to sport,
There we go.
as an homage to the sports dad, by week 10, Judd Zolgad will post a written article on Score North calling for the firing of Rick Spielman, Mike Zimmer, the whole damn staff, because he cannot stand that they're going status quo by week 10 of next year. So I'm going to give half a season to sports dad. So by week 10, he's going to call for the firing and pleading the Welsh to just shoot the horse in the leg with the broken leg. Just clear house, start
you shoot the horse
over.
in the leg, my man. You shoot the horse in the head. Yeah, there's nothing about a leg going on here.
Oh.
I'll forget about this, but you got to fight. You got a good chance of this happening.
Yeah.
I've already got that one drafted. It's just
Yeah.
ready to be posted.
Yeah.
In public.
All right.
Whoops.
Kip, is there anyone you'd like to thank that got you to this point here in your life as a member of the Write That Down Army, the great Write That Down home run hitters of all time?
I just there's a lot of people I thank, but I thank from my wife first importantly for putting up with me every Sunday, for being a depressed Vikings fan. That she said it's always going to happen, they're always going to lose, and you're going to be in the pit of despair until they win the Super Bowl. I do want to thank you guys for being kind of a light in the darkness right now. Just an escape from reality. I do want to give props to Judd Zolgad and Brian Murphy on that wonderful 4-part piece with the 2010 look back on Purple Day. That was wonderful. I am 31 years old, so I fall in the realm of Declan's age, that I became a Vikings fan in 1998, and we need to have more Vikings fan sports rewinds. But other than that, I didn't even think this prediction would come possible. So it's an honor to be in the history of Write That Down, and hopefully I'll be on more to make more predictions with you guys. So
Awesome, man.
That was great, Kip.
That's a
Thank
Vikes
you.
Thank you.
We'll get him on again.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
we're gonna have to have like a Write That Down Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And Kip is gonna be maybe up for.
But his two buddies, so his two friends crafted it, and then he just executed the
I think it was just the first
articulation
I went
of
to
it?
giving them credit for that.
No.
think
I think just the Ohio State one he credited.
Oh, I
to
thought
your
he was
buddies.
saying that they had told him about the Washington one, because they're the
No,
ones that
they
said.
nudged him to the
I
Washington.
got
Yeah.
you.
Okay. All right. So I just have a question. Is that like a Maguire Sosa shot? Like, because Kip,
You think Kip's on steroids?
I'm
and that's
saying,
how he's hitting
I'm
bombs
saying
and write
is
that
that
down?
if you get your buddies, like it's a trio of people, and you put together, Write That Down, that are essentially tape measure home runs. Are we talking about summer '98?
I mean, if you're accusing Kip of being on performance
Write
enhancing
this
prediction
down.
drugs, then
I'm just throwing it out there.
Judd Zolgad's final prediction of the first week of Purple Write That Down.
Okay, so I've got a new OC for the Vikings. I've got a firing in Denver. Let's end this on a very Zolgadian note. Dalvin Cook will not play in more than 12 games next regular season.
Okay.
So Dalvin Cook
Yeah.
will not play in more than the workload of 2020, in my opinion, is going to catch up to this talented young man. It's not his fault, but he's going to miss at least 4 games, if not more.
Yeah, I mean, you see what happened to Christian McCaffrey this year. Like it happens all the time when a guy goes beyond his normal workload, or like, an unprecedented workload, and then just automatically misses a month the next season.
Yep.
So, all right,
Write this down.
Dex, your final
All
prediction.
right, I'm not getting cold feet in the Reef one, but I want to ask you guys one other thing with the clarification on it. Can I say Riley Reef will be released from his current contract instead of cut? Because if a cut could be re-signed, like, could I say can be released from his current contract?
Well, he's not going to play for his current contract. So if that's what you're trying to say, then it's just, we'll give you the layup if you want to start.
I got
with
you.
a hit.
No, I'm just gonna go with the cut. I'll stay with the cut. I'll
Okay.
stay with the cut. I'll stay with the cut. That's
Because
fine.
like there's zero chance they just bring him back for $13.5 million.
Right.
Like
Okay.
he'll either get a restructured deal or he'll get cut.
He'll be cut. Got
Yeah.
it. Okay. Now my final prediction.
Okay.
The Vikings will acquire a second-round pick in the 2021 NFL draft. They don't have a second-round pick right now.
Dude, you and I are tracking. I
21.
got to change. I literally have that for my third prediction.
This is
I have to
unbelievable.
change mine.
This is
The
unbelievable.
Vikings will acquire a second-round pick.
You guys are just on the same
How
wavelength.
is that possible? It's amazing. All right, so they'll have a second round pick. That's
Write
what
it down. You like writing things down.
Wow. Should I
Fire,
add to that or should
fire
I-
somebody, you guys. Do something. Come
Okay,
on.
here's what I'll do.
Fire somebody.
Here's what I'll do. Write this down.
Yep.
A credible, you can help me with this, but a credible mainstream report. So not just like a random blog or something like
Like a Schefter
like we all
or a
agree,
Glazer.
like we would all have to agree, like, okay, that's legit.
I hear you.
A credible mainstream report will surface between now and March 10th, speculating on a Kirk Cousins trade to San Francisco. So it's some sort of like,
So
I'm
what's the
thinking
cl-
one of these like Ken Rosenthal does in baseball, where it's like, here's an idea.
So like Sando did that recently in The Athletic
Yep,
within the
and
last couple
so I'm
days.
saying another one, and I'm not saying he's not credible, but I think Sando is more speculating.
Right.
Which, by the way, if
But what's the line between
Starting-
speculating and what we call an actual credible report?
I'm saying there will be information. It won't just be like throwing something at the wall, a theory. It'll be rooted in some sort of information.
Okay.
So it's a little bit subjective, and I'm sort of relying on you guys to say yay or nay when I present an article to you at some point between now and March 10th. Okay.
I like it.
So there it is. Write that down.
Write this down. Write it down. You like writing things down.
Here on Purple Daily. And again, if you want, we can put too in the YouTube description too, just like a reminder. If you want to be part of this segment going forward, we got a bunch of openings. This is the first time that we've ever done this on Purple Daily. We're bringing this Mackey and Judd segment over to Purple Daily. So hit us up, hit me up, DM me on Twitter at Phil Mackey or Dex's tweets. Before we wrap the episode here, boys, Danielle Hunter, Judd, you floated this note to us in an email last night. So I want to ask it this way. Assuming that the Vikings don't get crazy and like fire Zimmer and make a bunch of like, structural changes, it seems like the franchise is likely to just sort of run it back in some way in 2021 under the premise that getting some defensive starters back will be the big difference between 7 and 9 and NFC contention, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, is it fair to say that Danielle Hunter and his health, his potential contract demands, as reported by Ian Rappaport a few months ago, that he is the single most important piece and cog to the Vikings puzzle this offseason? Because I think he is.
Let me think about that for a second.
If he comes back, the notion is like, if he comes back, then the defense is back to being top 15 automatically. Right. But if he says, I'm back, but I want to make $25 million a year, then it's like, okay, do you trade him?
Right.
How do you make room? Does Reef have to go?
And I think within the note that you're talking about that I sent you guys last night, I think that it was pointed out that the Vikings, since sacks started being tracked in 1982, I think they had 23 this season, which is the lowest total in franchise history going back to 82. That immediately changes if Hunter can play. So yeah, so he shouldn't be the most important thing, but the issue, and I think where your question holds water, is in Zimmer's world of how he thinks about things and runs things, which is everything is emphasized with defense first. The lack of a guy who could rush the passer as effectively as Hunter does and is as athletic and meaningful to altering what opposing teams have to do, that the answer is probably yes. I will, though, be very clear in saying it shouldn't be yes. Like that should not, the answer to your question should be no. But because of how the Vikings philosophically go about their business and how they basically want the offense to do its job to make the defense look good, unfortunately, the answer is yes. And I will continue to say that the Rappaport report to me cannot be dismissed. I think it's very important. And I do think that coming off a neck problem with a really, really underpaying contract, that the Hunter camp is going to say before he takes another snap as a Viking, we want you to tear up his contract and make him one of, if not the highest paid defensive player in the league, which is an enormous ask.
Yeah, he's it's amazing. Like,
this is going to be a situation, in my opinion.
I think so too. I don't, because on one hand you could say, and this is where I want your thoughts here too. Like on one hand you could say, well, he signed a contract. Let me just pull up the defensive end contracts here real quick, because I don't think he's in the top 10.
No, I think he's I believe I looked it up during the season. I think he was 18th among pass rushing defensive ends. He is grossly underpaid. His representation did an awful job.
So 4.3 defensive ends, according to overthecap.com. Joey Bosa, average annual value, $27 million a year.
It's quarterback
He's
money.
making more. And some of this is like, it's becoming so important to pay guys who can disrupt opposing quarterbacks that like, I'm a little bit more willing to have this conversation with a defensive end, an elite defensive end, in terms of like paying him through the roof than I am a running back or a safety. Like I would be way more okay with overpaying Danielle Hunter relative to, other players at that position than Dalvin Cook or Anthony Harris. Like I wouldn't rip the Vikings if they said, I know that $25 million is a lot. The question is, do you have to find another left tackle because you can't afford to pay Reef? What else has to go because you might have to pay Danielle Hunter this much money.
Yep.
Joey Bosa makes 27, Myles Garrett makes 25, Khalil Mack 23.5, DeMarcus Lawrence 21, and Frank Clark makes 20.8. Danielle Hunter makes 14.4. He's not even in the top 15 highest paid 4.3 defensive ends.
It's ridiculous.
And not every team runs a 4.3. So he's more in like the bottom half of starting 4-3 like stud defensive ends.
Stud.
So he could pretty easily say, listen, I make $14.5 million right now. If you doubled my pay, I would barely be the highest paid defensive end. So I'll settle for like second or third highest paid just because, listen, like, I don't want to put you in too tough of a spot.
Yep.
So would you be willing to say goodbye to a Riley Reif or say goodbye to, another key player somewhere, just to keep Danielle Hunter happy? Like, you might have to have that discussion.
But this is but my problem is this. This is where your previous decisions on players are now going to come back to impact you. The Dalvin Cook thing, for the 1,000th time, was never about, I don't like him. He's a great player. Okay. But when you signed him to the contract that you did, you ate up money that could go elsewhere. And this is, in this sport, I firmly believe this. It's a positional conversation. It's not an individual player. And if Dalvin Cook played left tackle or defensive end, you know what? I would have paid him and said, that's fine. But when you're paying Dalvin what you're going to pay him, when you're paying Kirk what you're going to pay him, and when you look at where they have decided to spend their money towards a salary cap that, by the way, might not go down as much as we thought, Phil, but it's going down. I guess my question is, do you have enough left to now make Hunter happy and sign him and be a successful team?
The best case scenario, and I don't think this is going to happen, the best case scenario is Danielle Hunter is healthy. He's willing to play for the contract that he signed, and you just plug him back in once off-season training camp starts, and his presence, as previously agreed upon contractually, his presence vaults the Vikings back into the top half of the league immediately defensively, without even talking about like Michael Pierce and Anthony Barr and whatever they could get in free agency. That's the best case scenario. But knowing how the Vikings always operate, it's never like a smooth sailing path to the best case scenario.
If you're him, if you're Hunter coming off a neck problem, and we don't know if it's really bad or necks scare me. So I'm not going to assume that it wasn't something big. But if you are him and you have put together the career that you put together before you sat out the 2020 season, is there any way on God's green earth that you're going to play coming off a neck problem for that contract? Because I'm not.
Well, I mean, I would love to have that contract.
And the Vikings, no, but I'm saying if you're him
money,
and you're looking at the over the cap right now, and your representation sold you way, way short, and you know that the next hit that you take might end you.
Yeah, I mean, this is where like I can't put myself in that mindset because he still makes $14.5 million and he agreed to that contract.
Underpaid now, and I want a new contract. But the flip side to that problem is the Vikings are going to come back and probably rightfully so say you had a neck problem.
This is the hard part about like talking about football player money and athlete money is that on one hand, I want to say, how much money do you really need? Like your team would be better if you just played for $14.5 million, or if you're Kirk, like, dude, if you just made like $15 million, you'd still be able to do whatever you want in life. And like, dude, like Kirk Cousins, like haggles over whether or not to pay his favorite band $100,000 to play a backyard party and like whether that's too expensive, you know?
Yeah, Kirk's Kirk.
So on one hand, I'm like, logical Phil is like, dude, it's $14.5 million. Like, what's the difference between 14.5 and 20? Your life's not gonna be different.
But it's pride partially.
And that's the other side. It's like union pressure and ego and all the other things that none of us normal people can wrap our heads around, right? It's all monopoly money past a certain point for most people. But I think we're just sort of warning fans that this might be a thing in the offseason. And if it becomes a thing where he wants to be one of the highest paid defensive ends, we're not just making this up. This is Ian Rappaport from a few months ago. Then what's your plan? How do you clear that money? Who do you have to say goodbye to? Or do you look to trade him? Do you look to move up in the draft and use Danielle Hunter as a trade chip?
That might be it.
Yeah.
That might be it. First and second round pick. I'm curious with him coming off a neck problem, what he could get you.
I mean, yeah,
because
not as much as a year ago.
Yeah, because he's a great player, but
you probably still get a second round pick. I don't know if you're going to get a first after a neck injury.
And like I don't know that you would trade him if you didn't get a first round pick. Yeah. Boy, that's a good question.
Ideally, you don't trade him because he's amazing. Like he's a guy that you would write. And honestly, this is the other thing. I would actually like if he said, I need to make $25 million, then I'll be happy and I'll be in my prime. And if you can confirm he's healthy, I think that's the path I would go down. But then it kind of feels like you're back in roster
And
construction
you're not
mode
signing
because
a left guard then.
you almost have to say goodbye to Riley Reef.
Dakota Dozier might be back.
So it's tough. We'll
The
see
one
what plays
thing
out.
is be careful because there will be a lot of people that hear this conversation and say, "Oh, come on, you guys, come on, that's way off. That's not." If you were the same person that said Stephon Diggs ain't going anywhere, Stephon, quit. This is nothing. When a major media outlet, especially one plugged into the bleeping league, reports something about a guy's contract, that's often the first part of the fuse that lights the entire thing.
Yeah. Yep. And so we'll see how this plays out. It'll be
Stephon Diggs is going to be back. What are you talking about?
kind of glad that he's not. I enjoy watching him in Buffalo, and I enjoy watching Justin Jefferson in purple. It's great.
Justin Jefferson's great. You are correct.
And I'm rooting for the Bills in the playoffs in part because I love Stephon Diggs. And I don't think you have to have animosity towards Stephon Diggs. Like,
you're a
it was
Packer
a breakup.
fan. You're a Stephon Diggs fan.
No, Declan's a Packer fan.
Yeah,
You're both Packer fans.
Declan's a Packer fan.
You're both Packer fans. You just
No,
I love
brought up
Stephon
yesterday.
Diggs.
I think the Packers might win the Super Bowl. I am not a Packer fan. Although I did wear a Brett Favre Packers jersey when I was 12 years old for Christmas one time because I was
And
mad
I
at the
got
Vikings.
heat for years for being a in the closet Packer fan.
Well, but you're married to it. Your wife loves the Packers.
yeah, she
So
adopted
you're a
them when I covered
Packer-in-law.
them.
Yeah.
You're a Packer-in-law.
You know what?
Packer-in-law.
I'm just a football fan. Okay, I'm Mr.
I appreciate
Positive.
greatness.
I'm Mr. Positive.
All right, that's a wrap on today's episode
That
of
was
Purple
fun.
Daily. Write that down every single Wednesday on Mackey and Judd and Purple Daily. We will see you guys tomorrow for another edition of How to Fix the Vikings.